Hello everyone, Team Mortec here, back at it again with another discussion video. And we're talking counter fairies today. As most of y'all already know, a new line of broken supporters come out for the counter fairy structure deck, with more than not likely cards like Solemn Strike being reprinted in there. I say it's basically guaranteed for Strike to have a reprint in there. And I heard it's guaranteed for D-Barrier to be in there too. Or something like that. I'm not sure. But I have a feeling Strike's going to be reprinted as a common in there. So if you can pay $45 for a playset of this thing right now, you'll be able to basically get it dirt cheap. Because I don't think it's going to get hit on our ban list. I mean, the card is good and all, but it hasn't been that game impacting ever since Masterpiece has been the thing. I'm not going to lie. And if it does hit, it's just going to go to 2 and nothing more. So, now I wanted to talk about what counter fairies. Could counter fairies be meta? Could they be meta? Could they be potential meta? I'm wondering. Just because, their new structure deck support's looking pretty overpowered, dude. That new continuous spell card that just allows you to put 3 fairies or 3 counter traps and then put them back to the top of your deck in any order. That's basically Daigusto Emerald now, except that they go stacked to the top of your deck right away. It's broken. I mean, and the new counter trap is, it's okay. And the reason I say it's okay, and I'm not saying it's garbage, is because, I mean, it can negate anything, and when it does negate something, you can summon a Air Knight Power Shaft like monster from your main deck or extra deck. And Power Shaft does have an extra deck monster. He's quite old if you guys didn't know who he is. So yeah, there's that. But the problem with that field spell is that even with Guiding Oriande here on the scale, you still need to be able to review a counter trap from your hand. And that's why I'm questioning if you should run it. Because most good counter fairy builds today abuse the living shit out of card demise. Like, they totally rely on this card in order to get their resource count up. So, if they want you to play that card, that counter trap, they're gonna need to make draw support for the deck where it doesn't have to use things like demise or something like that. So yeah, and another thing that this deck suffers at, it still suffers at the hands of a fucking Denko Sekka being put on the field against it. If you have not experienced the terror of Denko Sekka being put on the field against you and you have nothing but trap cards down that cannot be chained to her summoning, then you have understood the pain and misery of dealing with a Denko Sekka and not having a solemn warning to respond to it. That's why we're playing 2 force backs in here, because Denko Sekka can really screw up your day. Literally. And you will have to take one of your monsters and just slam it into her with Honest in your hand in order to overpower her. Aside from that, none of your other monsters in the deck are really meant to attack and overpower this girl. So one of the weaknesses of Counter Fairy is that it's really good when going first, mediocre at best when going second. The best advantage I say you can get out of going second is still being able to set up, and then you could change and negate your opponent's cards as they're activating their stuff, because unless if you have a counter trap, you can't change to a counter trap. That's probably the best thing about Counter Fairy. You cannot chain to a counter trap unless if you have a counter trap to chain to it. I mean, that's just how it works. So this deck has a decent advantage going second, but its main advantage is going to come from setting up and going first. If you go first, probably most likely, it's probably going to win. Because, I mean, when you put this card on the field, you'll be able to keep drawing cards as you keep negating, thus your resource pool never runs out. Your resource pool is always going to be there. The resource pool is never going to go. As long as you have Bountiful or Artemis on the field, your resource count will never disappear. You'll always be seeing cards in your hand. This ain't Infinity, boys. So yeah, most people like to run the third. I saw a build on YouTube where someone ran the third berry statue. I brought it down to 2 because I want to minimize my card count in the deck. Just because we have Demise. I mean, not card count, monster count in the deck because we have Demise in here. But yeah, this is just a sample build. This is just something I splashed together for the purposes of the video. Just to get this discussion out of the way. And now I'm going to tutor boot the new fairy support. I'm going to give it a 2 because it is quite broken. But that trap card is very easily bootable. Like, the fact that you need to review a counter trap in your hand, the whole purpose of the deck is to just set all your fucking back row and pass. So now you have to keep one in hand too, thus making Demise dead with the card, thus making it a 1-of at best, and that's only for mid to late gameplay. I mean, and for that, it's not even that worth running. I mean, you'll have to construct a build that doesn't rely on Demise, because, I mean, I'll try to construct a build without Demise, but I'm not sure if it's gonna win as much as the Demise version of the deck. I'm sorry, I think this version is better, because it has way more consistency, way more easy turn 1 boards to be set up, easy ways to lock out your opponent of being able to special summon. So, an easy way to recur your resource pool. Easy ways to search more copies of Ariande. So, you just have it all in here. With a decent extra deck and side deck, I say this is the better version. I'm sorry. Then the new version coming out just because the fact still remains that this version has way more consistency and draw power than that version will ever have. And that version you're gonna have to run and rely on Ties of the Brethren. You are running Ties of the Brethren here as it is, but in that version you're gonna have to rely on the fucking card. And here's my thing with this deck. It's very similar to like the Tower Knights, where I'm running like 13 counter traps in there now. Yeah, 13. 3 Recall, 3 Dark Bribe, 3 Horde of Heaven, 3 Telenova Alpha, and the 1 Solemn Warning. I mean, if I get like 2 copies, 1 copy or 2 copies of Solemn Strike, I may find a way to throw it in there, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But yes, the Tower Knights and Counter Fairies are actually more similar than what people are willing to give them credit for. Now, out of the two, the Tower Knights and Counter Fairies, I have to say the Tower Knights is the better one. Because they have the advantage going second. So everybody that I play against makes me go first. And when I go first, I just set up my counter traps and I just start wrecking people with my counter traps. Now, which one is less bricky? The Counter Fairy build is much less bricky and much less bricky and much more consistent than my Stellar Knights. But the fact that my Stellar Knights can get away with going second puts them out there more than this deck. My Stellar Knights will send your entire deck back into the Stone Age if you choose to go first. So everybody at my locals made me go first. But I was like, why are you making me go first? And then I remembered Trevor. And yeah. the Tower Knights are better in this deck because that deck actually has a huge advantage going second. Being able to set up with Trigger when your opponent invested everything into a turbo board is huge. Huge, man. Huge. And if your opponent makes you go first, you're just going to set up like Ties of the Brethren, 3 Tower Knights, set 3 Horn of Heaven and 2 Alphas, pass. And then you just draw no more cards with Alphas. And Supernova Alpha is basically the Artemis of the deck. It's recurring your resource count for you. So Supernova Knight, and they're both light. How ironic. So Counter Fairies and Supernova Knights are more similar than what people are willing to give them credit for. Because overall, like I just said a few minutes ago, Supernova Knight's the better one because it has more versatility. And I know I've been reading a lot of hate comments on Counter Fairy lately. I've been seeing hate comments like, oh, this is a no fun stun deck. If you run this at locals, no one will want to play you. Oh, you either brick with it and you lose, or you don't brick and you crush her and you basically end your opponent's life, and then they never want to rematch you again outside of the tournament. Yeah. But, and believe me, don't let that shit stop you from running Counter Fairies at your locals if you have the cards already. If you have your strikes, you have your demise, you have your desires, you have your Ties of the Brethren, you have your fairies, you have your counter traps, you have all that. You can make a good extra, you can make a good side deck. If you can do all that, play Counter Fairy. I'm pretty sure you'll make top 8 easy at your locals. And that's being generous. You'll probably make top 4 because that deck is super OP. And you have to play things like in the deck Mirror Force for like going second and things like that because this deck still could lose to having a board made in its face. But yeah, if you want to run Counter Fairy at your locals, do it. Because the deck is broken, and it's gonna get even more broken over a period of time, as more and more of the cards get unveiled to us from the structure deck. And yeah, a lot of people be hating on Counter Fairy. Always. People hate on every single stun deck. Every single one. Barrier Statue, Counter Fairy, Heralds, Stellar Knights, Virus Stun, King Tiger Wangu Stun. Every single fucking stun deck, everybody hates on it. No stun deck is liked more than the next. GKs, Gravekeepers, Hero Stun, or any deck built around Darklaw, or Klee Stun. Everybody hates on all stun variants, and I understand that you don't like having your hand. You don't like having your deck that you spent like easy $200-300 on ripped to shreds by a budget 150 or less stun deck. But that's still no reason to be salty, man. And I'm serious, if you sometimes you run this deck at your locals, you may even win. And after the tournament, people were good. After there on out, people start giving you this look because they don't like Counter Fairy players at locals because no one likes stun. Everybody always asks me what I feel the best budget decks are, and I always say stun decks in general. You have to figure out how to make it work, but stun. And it's true, stun's the best. It truly is. It's truly the best deck that you can run general. All stun variants. And oh yeah, another one that people hate on, side frames. And back when this deck mattered against in Blue Eyes format, Evil Swarms was another one that was hated upon a long time ago. Back in the Blue Eyes format in like August and September of 2016. So yes, stun's always being hated on. But if you're a stun player, don't let it get to you. Don't let it get to you. If you're running that Dark Lord troll shit, don't let it get to you. Just play your deck and win. Piss them off. Tell me how you guys do with stun at your locals. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Team War Tech signing out. I'll be back with more videos today. Peace.